This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Well, let's welcome Jourdan Osinskie to the Team Blaney Podcast. Jourdan is the Jackman for the number 12 Ford Mustang for Ryan Blaney and Team Penske on the NASCAR Cup Series circuit. And he's a crew member with Team 12. And he's another one in a series of interviews we've been doing with members of the team and getting to let everybody else know a little bit more about them. So, Jourdan, welcome to the show.
I appreciate you guys for having me. I'm excited.
Now, first off, before we ask you any questions, for those of you that are listening to this or watching this on video, you got that new body armor jacket. Repping that, right?
Yeah, it's hard not to, man. This is a swaggy of a jacket right here.
What'd you think of the photo shoot? A lot of people like the pictures.
Oh man, it kind of I knew it was coming, but I wanted to get some reps in with some of the younger guys just to kind of keep the gears oiled a little bit. And they handed me the jacket and said, "Hey, we're gonna go take some pictures." I'm the only guy out of all of us that's sweaty, like breathing hard. Like it was a whirlwind of a photo shoot, but it was fun.
So Jourdan mentioned that you're the Jackman for Ryan's pit crew, and but you didn't start out that way. So I'm going to go all the way back, maybe to your younger days, maybe high school. Were you involved in a lot of sports? I know you have a football background, but was it just football, or did you participate in everything across the board?
So surprisingly, I spent my whole life playing football, but the actual dream was baseball. I remember, so I spent a little time in Gibsonville, North Carolina, home of Torrey Holt, one of the Los Angeles Rams legends. And I lived across the street from his old house when he was a kid. And we had a park right like diagonal from our neighborhood. And I used to go there and play baseball just by myself, toss a ball up, $20 worth bat, just trying to hit as far as I could. So that was a dream, but football just happened to be the route for me to take that was most beneficial for my size, speed, everything that worked out for it. So yeah, football was probably the staple of my childhood and my teenage years. I went to Catawba College. It's a D2 school in Salisbury, North Carolina. Actually, a very big rival to a previous interviewee of Chris Conklin. We we weren't big fans of each other as far as college campuses back then, but surprisingly, I don't know if he told you, but me and Chris Conklin actually went to the same high school, 10 years apart, Southern Alamance. So there's a lot of different ties in there, but definitely football was the staple for me, and that kind of gave me all the physical attributes that I needed to be I guess now a successful Jackman, and we're trying to keep pushing that meter a little farther along.
Now, before you kind of went down the lane into racing and being a pit crew member, I'm sure your dream from college, even from a D2 school, was to try to make your way into the NFL at some point. That did kind of happen a little bit for Chris. He got onto some practice squads and things here and there. Did you ever feel like you had a legitimate shot to go down that path, and were you kind of working towards that?
I definitely had all the confidence in the world to be a player on that national level. It's amazing how it works because it works the same way as far as being a pit crew member, as far as the eye test and just kind of what you can put out as far as energy and strength and speed. So I ended up going to a pro day at Elon University in Burlington, North Carolina, and at the time, it was more so like, let me just say that I could do it. I was battling with a really bad ankle injury at the time, and I still tested really well compared to the other players in the actual NFL draft in my position. I was titled as a tight end, but I was a little shorter than those guys. A lot of those NFL tight ends were 6'5", 6'6", a solid 260. And I was on the shorter side at 6'2", 240. And the cars just didn't line up for me to kind of be appealing for that position. So I don't know if you want to get into it now as far as how the opportunity presented itself for me to be a Jackman at Penske. I don't want to step too far in any next questions.
Well, sure. I was just actually going to say, so a lot of the other guys we talked to, even road crew members and Flores and some other people, they've kind of come up through racing as it being like the family business, or maybe it was their dream, so they packed their bags and they moved to North Carolina and they slept on somebody's couch, and that's how they got their foot in the door in a fab shop, and then the ball just kind of gets rolling from there. So how did your story kind of differ? Did you have to go and pack your bags and sleep on anyone's couch, or was it more of like a sports recruitment almost type situation?
Um, so I can only speak on two different ways that it happened for two different teams. So I think I was a sophomore or a junior. So I tore my ACL freshman year at Catawba College, and so that gave me an extra year. So pardon me if I'm incorrect with whether it was my sophomore or junior year. But my god brother, I was staying with my god family during college for some time, and he played for Powerhouse Football. It's a rec league team here in Mooresville, North Carolina. And the upper level happened to be our pit crew head coach's son's team. And he saw me at practice, and hey, kid. I mean, you're tall, you're bulky, you're strong. Like, what do you do? And he got my background at Catawba, and he was like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I've been playing football since I was 7 years old. I would like to go to the NFL, if God's willing. And he, it's, it's kind of, I understood where he's coming from, so it was pleasant. But he was like, "Hey, so the chances of making the NFL. Like, when you don't make the NFL, let me know so I can give you a call so you can come be a Jackman in NASCAR." And at the time, anytime I heard the word NASCAR, I was thinking, okay, cars going fast, turning left, big ovals. Um, yeah, the only thing that I knew of substance was 3, 24, and 48. It was
Yep.
just those three numbers that I had any previous knowledge of. And sure enough, 2 years later, he called me. He's like, "Hey, did you make it?" And I was like, "No, I dinged up my ankle. Didn't perform too well." And he's like, "All right, I'll see you in the shop at 7 a.m. Tuesday." And honestly, the story after that, I don't know if we have enough time, but ever since that first day, there's a long road to get to where I'm at now, and that's how it played out for me. Now, Hendrix Motorsports tried to reach out to me through my actual college athletic coaches, and I appreciated it so much, just kind of the luck of the draw of being able to kind of fall in line with Penske, and they ended up being my decision kind of hands down. I was just thankful that Hendrix kind of reached out to me too. But that's how it played out. I just kind of got a little bit lucky, right place, right time, had the right conversation, met the right person, and here we are now on the podcast.
So you don't have to give us super detailed versions, but where you probably start out just kind of practicing at the shop before they put you on a live car for live pit stops. But I'm going to assume you ended up pitting like an Xfinity car or something along the way before you make your way to the Cup Series.
Oh yeah. So I have to humbly say that the path that I had to take to kind of get to where I'm at today was very lucky. Everything just kind of happened just for me to be in this position. We had a couple mistakes made that kind of opened up some spots for me to hop into a Cup car very early in my career. Like the first year, I got hired in 2019 in March, and I was on a Cup car with Corey LaJoy on the 32 car. By October, I think I finished the season with those guys, and oh God, just being honest, it was bad. It was performance-wise, it was bad because there's so much that you had to learn as far as being actually in the environment where everything's live. You actually have stuff to lose. It's totally different from practice. So I spent a good amount of time with Corey LaJoy and Go Fast Racing, and things started to really work out once I kind of had like that final reminder, like ask yourself, like, what are you gonna do that's better than this at this point in your life? And I finally stepped into being a true professional in 2021. That was the first year of Next Gen, correct? Like 20, yeah,
22, I think, is when
Yeah.
I
20.
think when
Okay,
they switched over. Yeah,
22
so
was my
21
first.
would have been one more with the 5 looks, I think.
Okay, so 2022 is when everything just became a wildfire for me, and it was just all about kind of taming it as best as you could. So I started pitting for Todd Gilliland on the 38, and a great group of guys. They really made me feel comfortable as far as where I was at in that position. Everybody knew that next gen was very new for all of us, and there was a lot of growing pains that were going to come with it. But we ended up putting out some really good work for them, and then that's when the scare across the sport came when it came to losing wheels. It's like, hey, we only got one plug now, so we can lose wheels. And we had a suspension where I did a short 4 weeks on the 2 car with Austin Cindric and Pocono and a couple of those races. And safe to say, I went out and I performed, kind of showed the big wigs that I could handle the moment, and I was ready for it. And then after that stint, we went to the 21 car with Harrison Burton. Um, we had a couple good weeks with them, and then a wildfire, actually like literally a wildfire left rear one race. Kind of that'll always be in my memories as far as the growth path. And then um, we had a suspension on the 12 car. Sad to say,
Bristol. I was
oh
there.
yeah,
I was at that race. Yeah, that was rough.
I remember it too, and I think that was the first time where my heart kind of dropped into the bottom of my gut. And it was like, okay, I'm the next one in line to kind of, fill in that spot. And once I got in, it was really, I can't give enough credit to the road crew and just Ryan and the other pit crew guys because, when you're coming up as a pit crew member, like usually the people you end up working with already know your story. They already seen the mistakes you made. They've already seen the growth that you made. And as a youngin, kind of hopping into that caliber position, you realize that okay, there's some pressure here because the way it timed up was I got on the car in playoffs. So it's not like you had some regular season races to kind of get comfortable. Like, no, we need you to come in. We need you to perform right away. And that's kind of where I've strived most of my life is like put me in a pressure situation and I'll find a way to take advantage of it. And sure enough, we had a really good playoff series. Unfortunately, we didn't get to the final round where we wanted to be. But it left just enough on the table for the rest of us to kind of be like, okay, I think now it's safe to say that we've got all the pieces moving where we need to go. And the next season comes along, and I think most of the people that be watching here can kind of understand. Like we saw that coming into play, and it all started with Charlotte, and that was my first Cup Series win. And that right there kind of showed me like, okay, like this is real deal here. Like this dude's got a taste of blood. Ryan's ready to roll. Like enough with the words that we've heard about being too nice or whatever the case may be. It's time to go after it. And we came together as a team, and all the way from the small things to after every meeting, after every workout, it was me who stood in the middle and said, hey, let's break it down. Let's get in here as a group. Let's break it down because we put in a nice body of work here, and we should celebrate that in unity. And I think that was a small thing that I could contribute to the end goal. And once we got into the playoffs and Talladega happened and Martinsville happened, like when we got to Phoenix, that's when like the huge rush of emotions of the trials and tribulations of learning and kind of being the youngin, hopping into a team. And granted, this is my first season. I could be forever grateful for. I mean, there's not too many players I could say your first season on a Cup car, you went and won the whole shebang. And that just put us on an all-time high as a family and a team. And I think that just makes it so much easier for us to kind of go through races where things don't happen the exact way we want them to. We know that we have the cards in the deck to go out there and get it done again. So that's just a little spill of kind of how it happened for me. I'd say a lot of luck and then a lot of ownership of understanding where you're at and understanding that a good team might just be missing one little piece, two little pieces. Somebody fills in that gap, and you kind of got the whole group, flowing how you want it to. And I think we've shown that as a unit here lately.
So you get recruited, but they decided pretty much right away that you're a Jackman. I mean, there wasn't looking at doing some fueling or carrying tires.
No, so my buddies are probably going to give me a little backlash from this. So when I started I started my career as being a pickery player in NASCAR. I was 6'3" and about 240, 245. Um, I don't know if Conklin said anything, but so I'm actually 6'3" and 285 pounds now, and it's kind of made my job a whole lot easier. So back then, I was the frame. I was the frame for a Jackman. I had the height, I had the weight, I had the athletic capability. And if you go back through a lot of the Jackmen across the board, there's a lot of Jackmen that are tight ends previously, um, defensive ends, linebackers. There's just a core group of positions in different sports that kind of work out for this position. And it was never a question. I never once did a rep being a carrier or, oh, well, I take that back. Here's a little funniness for the show. So my first race that I ever pitted was for Tanner Gray, and I actually went to college with his older brother at Catawba College. Who he owns a gym now in Mooresville, CrossFit gym, really successful. And so I was a fueler. My first race, just get to the track. Let's see how it works out. You be a fueler. First time the car comes in, we're at Michigan. I remember it like it was yesterday. Uh, First time the car comes in, I don't get a lick of fuel in it. it was about as worse as it could be
man.
for a youngin'. Like I'm plugged in, everything. I've got freaking Lake Norman on the floor of just fuel, and it was bad. But the next few stops, we got it in, finished it out. But yeah, my first race ever, I was a fueler, and I learned pretty quickly. I was like, I'm not gonna take too much credit away from these guys. It's not an easy deal, right? It doesn't look like a lot of movement, but it's pretty tough. So after that, I think everybody realized, all right, this guy is just a Jackman. At least for now, let's not put too much on his plate. So that's how it ended up for me.
So now the Jackman though is pretty much, I don't want to use the term quarterback, but
Oh
the
yeah, you
whole pit stop kind of, yeah, I mean, kind of the whole pit stop revolves around what you're doing, correct? I mean, especially with the single lug nut.
absolutely. So we take it back to the last couple of years of five lug. We like to use the term pace setter. The pace setter back in five lug it was all about your changers, right? Just make the changers' job as easy as they can, so they can hit five different lugs and different patterns every single time as quick as they can, as efficiently as they can, and let's just make sure that we make decisions based off of when those guys are done. But now that we're in one lug, it's clearly the time that you lose is the gap between when a decision needs to be made and when it's made. So you give a couple tenths because you think the right rear, you could be late on the right rear being done. You're kind of sitting there like, oh man, all right. So the Jackman solely lost 3 tenths right there because he didn't make that decision quick enough. Now I think the biggest difference between five lug and one lug is the penalty that you get for making a decision too late it's times 10. Like when if you cut it on the fifth lug and you were on time, it could be a tenth or two. But now it's like if you're waiting on one lug, it's easily going to be between 3 tenths and 5 tenths, which that's a whole lot more detrimental nowadays considering everybody's working the same tools in the same game. So I would definitely I would definitely say it's a healthy term to say that the Jackman is a quarterback now. And it's still true though, because your quarterback he's only as good as the players around him, right? I'm just here to kind of facilitate, make decisions based off of everyone else's performance, just so, from start to finish, I know that I've left the least amount of time on the table as possible. So the gap of decision making is so much tighter, was so much more detrimental. And I think that's where some people might miss the change of difficulty in the stops.
And the
How much?
penalty really
How much?
grows
Yeah.
exponentially, like from just seconds for having to take an extra time to make a decision and let them maybe finish off a lug nut. But if they don't, and you drop the jack and he leaves, then you're worried, or he finds out there's a loose wheel while he's out on track. So just the time to come back down and tighten it, or disaster strikes and it comes off on the track, and you've experienced this before. You're sitting at home, not as long as before, I think, but you're still getting a suspension there. So, what's that pressure? I mean, you said you kind of thrive on pressure, but what's that pressure like?
Yeah, so I definitely like pressure. I think that's where the new avenue of adrenaline comes from with this stop is understanding like, hey, I need you guys to still do the stop as fast as you can, while still understanding that the penalty is 10 times larger than it was before. And I think that's where a lot of us kind of miss some credit is like understanding like, hey, the smallest little change could make all the difference. I know they showed a race here previously where one of the winners won by a couple tenths, and then they kind of went back and was like, well, here's the difference between both of their pit crew stops. And that's here or there. There's a lot more that goes in between from the pit stop to actually how many laps you're on the track, which you understand that when you're in the sport. But as a pit crew player, it's like, hey, like yeah, what if we did get those couple of tenths? That could have been the difference between second and first for us. So it's the you can't really judge the pressure, right? Because there's a totally different pressure for green flag stops and yellow flag stops. There's a totally different pressure from doing a 10-2 to a 9 flat, which we're starting to see a lot more of those every single race. You're seeing a lot more 8-second stops, which last year or the year before that they thought wasn't going to be a thing for a while. So you definitely have to have a thick skull when it comes to understanding like what there is to lose and understanding how much we need to gain to win. So if you can kind of level out that pressure and kind of keep a strong mindset on what needs to be done, and you just understand like, hey, we're out here to do what we're asked to do, and if it doesn't work out, like that's kind of part of it. Because you sit back and you kind of think like, okay, we got a 400 lap race. Let's say that's probably unrealistic, but let's say we got a 400 lap race and we've got 8 stops. One bad stop out of 8 stops is a whole lot worse for the end goal, as in our driver making a mistake for 1 lap. You kind of they've got a lot more opportunities to kind of correct that for us. So we take that to heart and understand the body of work that our drivers have put into being in the position that they're in, and that just kind of accrues a whole nother pressure for us where it's like, let's not damage somebody else's life work. And that's the mindset that I bring to the table when I think about being a Jackman / quarterback of the team. Is I like to think about how much I had to put in to be in my position here, but I also like to think of how many laps my driver has put in his lifetime on any kind of track, any kind of car, to be in that position to potentially get us that end goal that we're looking for. And that's where the true pressure is, because now we're not only talking about specific race performance, we're talking about like, how much time has this person put into being in here? We need to work so hard as a pit crew to where we can try to catch up to that, to where it's worth just as much for us. So pressure is an understatement. It's not life or death, but I think the best crews out there treat it like every stop is life or death.
What's a week of preparation like now? Do you guys do practice every day, or is there more of like a conditioning type thing every day? I mean, what does like a week look like leading up to a race?
Okay, so Mondays, you're pretty whooped from Sunday, right? Tuesday is more of let's kind of touch base on what kind of car we think we're gonna have. Usually our cars are not set up by then. So Tuesday is kind of like, let's come into practice. Just make sure we're well rested for the amount of time that we have for the quick turnaround. Let's come in, let's pit. We usually start with stops where we're kind of knocking some rust off, and usually we finish the Tuesday off by some pretty sporty stops. We've got our rust out the way, and we're getting confident. We're kind of running through the stops again, and then after that, we usually have a good weight room workout, just kind of keep us maintained or growing if that's what you need to move on. But before the actual stops, usually we run through film. We run through film, just kind of talk about like, hey, this is what happened on this stop. This is how we need to tweak something to fix it, or understand like, okay, that's an issue that we can leave with that race because you go from a super speedway to an intermediate. Say, okay, our car's not going to be set up that way. Let's come back to it when it makes sense. So Tuesday is kind of like your rebound day. Let's get focused on what we got going on throughout the week, and then Wednesday, it's like you spit on an anthill. Like everything's just going fast. Everything is just all over the place, and we want to see where we're at. Wednesday kind of gives us that confidence to really get after it, and that's the joy of practice, right? Is practice you can go 120 miles per hour doing a pit stop because if a mistake happened, we're not going to lose a race from it. We're just going to kind of see and get a baseline of what we can do and what we need to kind of take off a little bit in order to bring that to the track. And so Wednesday is kind of let's fly, let's get after it. Same thing, workout. Usually we check the car, kind of see how the setup is, and then Thursday it's truly a race prep day. It's like, okay, we went 120 miles per hour on Wednesday. Thursday, let's go 90% and as clean as we possibly can be because clean at the racetrack when things are changing, um, shocks are locking up, whatever the case may be, and that car comes in and things aren't moving exactly how they were for us in practice. So Thursday is more so mental preparation while physically getting clean stuff done in order to have that confidence that you need to kind of walk into the weekend and be like, all right, we've got a good idea on what's needed, and we know how to perform here because we're all mentally ready. So Thursday, kind of after that, we're winding down a little bit. Friday, Saturday, family, kind of preparing yourself mentally late in the night for the racetrack. That's pretty much what it looks like every single week in and week out because you obviously can't take out what everybody else has to do, right? You got bills, you got kids, you got families, you got duties, right? So I think the biggest challenge is being able to stay locked in when you don't have anything to do throughout that Thursday evening, Friday, Saturday to be able to come into Sunday. But there's one thing that I tell a lot of people that I kind of mentor and coach in the same profession that I'm in is how do we mentally stay locked in through everything that we've got to deal with through the week because that's the true skill. Anything can happen from Thursday to Sunday, correct? So I think that's the most valuable skill that you can have as a pit crew player is understanding, okay, I might not work 40 hours a week like other guys, but what I had to lose is a lot more detrimental on the weekend when everybody else is relaxing. So that's pretty much the challenge every single week is how can we bobble everything you need to do as an adult in order to come out and understand the big picture on Sundays and everything that we have to lose and everything that we can do to gain. That's the big challenge, and that's what every week looks like.
So for a majority of the 2023 season, I would kind of describe the 12 crew as just being incredibly consistent, but not necessarily always the fastest crew on pit road. But you weren't really ever putting Ryan in bad spots throughout the year, especially during the playoffs. You guys were super locked in. You have the off season. We come into 2024. You guys, I mean, you guys have kind of been on fire was what a lot of people would maybe describe because you've gone from being just super consistent to I would consider one of the more elite teams on pit road. You've climbed that leaderboard that kind of gets put out there that I'm sure you guys watch on from week to week. There's points when you've been leading the series and 4-tire pit stop time. You don't have to give away secrets or anything, but what do you think maybe changed maybe going into the playoffs last year and into this season that's just you guys have really clicked to kind of take it to the next level?
Oof. The, you got to when you answer a question like that, you've really got to choose your words wisely because I think everybody as a public now understands that words can be taken completely sideways.
Oh, for sure.
And yeah, absolutely, and not for the greater good. But I would definitely say Last year when we went into the playoffs, and I don't want to be selfish here, but I can only speak, probably 90% for myself. Um, I know mainly for me, it was okay when you got on this car in 2022, you got on in the playoffs, and that boosted my confidence level, so much being able to prove to myself that I can go out there on the big stage and be mistake free and keep our team going exactly where we needed to be or expected to be. And then 2023, it was like, okay, the big goal for all of us was like, let's end the win streak. I'm sorry, let's end the losing streak, which was what 60 was it 65 races of a losing streak or
It was a
55?
lot. Yeah.
Yeah, too many for the caliber
Yeah.
driver that we have. Um, like I said, Charlotte was a turning point. I think when Charlotte happened, I think that's when everyone realized like I think we can believe now that things just didn't line up the way we wanted them to be. But now that we know that it's there and we all kind of got a taste of blood, it was like, okay, there's no question anymore. We know we can do it. Let's just go out there and have that mindset every single weekend. Like there's not a racetrack that we can't win at. And once we got to the playoffs, and let's call a duck a duck. I mean, Blaney, he made probably one of the craziest moves at Talladega. I mean, just to dive under the four car like that, like at that moment right there, next to Charlotte, I was like, oh yeah, Ryan's hungry. He wants it. Like he made that move when we've seen time, a handful of times before where he might not have made that move because he thought he had the line, but his aggression right there for that move right there, going that fast around that track, next to somebody who's a legend in the sport like Harvick was or is, sorry. I think that really set a fire under the rest of us to be like, okay, it's time to get after it. We don't have much to lose now because if we're gonna try to win here, we're gonna win in the biggest stage, and that's the playoffs. And then Martinsville happened, and he won in dominating fashion. And then Phoenix came, and we've always known that like the last 5 races of the playoffs have been a strong suit for Blaney. Those are just tracks that we've historically been known to be fast at. Um, Conklin said it best. He was like, we're gonna go win this thing." And I told Steve, I was like, I was worried about kind of getting on the podcast early and kind of putting some stuff in the air, and I kind of let him do it. That's just kind of where I was as far as mentally. I just really wanted to be locked in. But when it all played out and we actually won, it still took some time to realize like, oh, we're a championship caliber team, and we proved it this year. We won when it counted, and we performed as a pit crew when it counted. And you can go through stops and kind of see like where important decisions were made between stops, but none of that really matters when you actually look at the end of the year. And a championship was all we wanted as a group. Now this year, 2024, the tables flip, right? Oh, you're a championship team. You had some talk about saying, oh, it was a fluke, or you got Blaney fans saying that it was supposed to happen, which we believe it was supposed to happen because we put the work in. We made decisions every day of the week that was going to put us in that position to win, and it didn't surprise us after it happened. In 2024, now it's like, okay, we obviously wanted to come out fast. We wanted to come out and probably have a win by now. There's talk about Ford's not performing the way they wanted to. That seemed to be the struggle for everybody driving a Ford this year, and it gets tricky when you start hearing stuff like that because you don't want to think about stuff that you don't have control over. That's not going to help us, move forward. But that's one thing about Hassler and about Blaney that they do a really good job at is keeping everybody grounded as a group, saying that, hey, this might not be what we expected right now. But last year, they had the same thing. Everybody talked about the Fords. And then, boom, swept the series. So it kind of takes some pressure off of our back now, understanding like, okay, Fords aren't doing what we want them to do right now, but that hasn't stopped us in previous years from finishing on top. So I think now the biggest motto is find a way to get better every single week, no matter what track that we're at. And winning the championship has done nothing but created a stronger, more stickier glue between crew chief, managers, driver, pit crew, road crew. There's nothing that could break the relationship that we have together. And I think that's the strongest thing that you can have as far as being on a team. There's a big thing that I believe in, and when I got on this team was I want to find um, how I want to find the best, quickest route to eliminate pit wall. And I say that because pit wall only divides two groups: road crew, pit crew, because we jump over the wall, right? We're on one side. When you divide that wall, you create. I'm sorry. When you make that wall disappear, you create a level of understanding between duties, right? Between jobs. Pit crew has a job to go change tires, making adjustments as fast as we can. Road crew has a job of logging details on what we need to do for the pressures or the whatever adjustment we need. What they're focused on is totally it's a 180 from what we're focused on. When we can eliminate that pit wall, now there's no question on the ability to make the decision. That's how we become stronger. And I think that was the most important thing for us. So if we do something wrong as a pit crew, it's not, oh, you suck. I mean, y'all are killing us, and there's none of that anymore. And I think a lot of teams could benefit from that, but I'm not going to tell them to do that because we absolutely want to come back for back to back this year. So hopefully I stayed on topic there because I get so passionate about answering
No,
these
it's great.
questions.
And I would
That
say from what some of the road crew guys we've talked to, and then pit crew guys too, I feel like that's kind of been mentioned with this team is the fact that a lot of the road crew guys are long time guys that have been together. They've been in the trenches. They've won championships or a championship with Logano in the past, and they've gone through crew chief changes. And but the pit crews don't always stay together for long periods of time. And obviously, the 12 crew, even when you came in September of that year, I think even early in the year there had already been changes made that Flores and the carrier comes over from the 2 car to the 12. And so I feel like at least you kind of had that whole year to gel going all the way to the championship. And that had to have done a lot to help kind of build those bonds across the entire crew that's all wearing those Menards colors every week.
absolutely.
So I had one question back to just the physical aspects of your job, because if people watch week to week and they watch pit stops, like the technique of a jackman can be a little bit different between teams. And I see some guys do this kind of big swinging movement with the jack, getting around the car. It's kind of like flashy, and they say it's faster. Like, how would you have you attempted any stops like that before, even in practice? And what would you say kind of your technique is on pinning a car?
Um, that's when you get into the real details of what kind of separates you from other people in your position. Now, if you want to talk bias, I can selfishly say that the way that I do it is top of the line. I think you can look at a couple of terms that we use as Jackman, depending on when do you flip? When do you flip your hand? A lot of people are coming back to the hand behind the handle. We call it the two-hand snatch.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people want to snatch it and they want to flip their hand to the top of the handle so they can secure tightness on the right front corner. When you can look across the board and I'm saying this humbly because some people do other things a little bit better. But you look across the board and you want to talk about times and what's actually quicker. Anybody, you put every jackman that flips their hand late, either on the second half of the front of the car or going into the left side peg, as I do. Usually runaround speeds, those guys are quicker. Just because it's the mindset of let me, if I'm going to flip my hand early on the right side of the car, I've created a slow moving area around the runaround. So we're talking runaround, right side peg to left side peg. You already got when you get to the left side of the car, you've already got to slow down to kind of get your body under control to hit that left side peg with the speed that you want to. So when you flip your hand on the right side of the car, you created another slow area to where I need to focus on, securing my handle tight on the right side. And the amount of time that I have to focus on just my feet as far as running around the car has become substantially shorter. So I can only focus on my feet going around the front of the car. So most of the people that you see that flip late, they've now added another quarter of the runaround to where they can focus on just running. Because when you flip late, you flip your hand when you're already slowing down in the first place. So we've combined two movements into one essentially. But when you talk about pace that certain jackmen use, like there's some jackmen that everything they do is just extremely fast, and I won't say out of control, but you can definitely see when that pace is out of control because all it takes is for one missed grab or one missed handle cut or whatever the case may be, and you can start to see where the choppiness. My mindset and a lot of the successful jackman mindset is smooth the speed. And I think that works for everybody, even as a driver. Smooth the speed. If you make a decision late coming out of a turn, you're going to lose time. But if you make it early and on time and it's smooth, you're gonna have the lap time that you want. And it's the same thing for us jackman is smooth the speed. So I think a lot of guys, when we went from five lug to one lug, kind of had that shock of a mindset where it's like, okay, they're expecting the stop to be so much quicker. I need to physically move quicker. But that's not necessarily the case. I think the better analogy is to make the assumption that I need to make a decision quicker. And I think you can do that without physically moving quicker and still shave time. Because the last thing you want to do is be physically out of control. There's obviously certain attributes that certain size jackmen have. Like, you have your 6'1", 240 jackmen that are, probably quicker foot speed. But then you have your jackmen that are my size that are a little taller and, a good bit heavier that make up speed on the pump. There's different areas where you can kind of take advantage of, but there's one thing, there's one thing that remains the same for all of us in that position is we want to do everything as clean as possible in every attribute, whether that's peg time, peg to pump time, peg to right front time, right peg to left peg runaround time, to left side peg to left rear hang time. Like those are, you can kind of block everything up that we do in those categories right there. And the main goal for all of us is how can we do each one of those separate sections as good as we can. And I think that's really where you start to differentiate really good jackmen from, jackmen that are still coming along.
So are you
Yeah.
looking forward to some competition this weekend coming up? Little special competition for positionings?
Oh yeah, there's definitely some bragging rights to be had at a weekend like this. We I think pit crew guys take pride in being kind of behind the scenes a little bit. You have some guys that want to strive for more, but when you give us an environment that says, hey, it's about you guys, we want to see what you guys can bring to the table. I think that's when everyone kind of works out a little bit harder, kind of goes to sleep a little bit earlier, eats a little bit better during the week, kind of cuts out some of the extracurricular activities that some might want to do, and you really put all your coins in the same hat and say, all right, this is the weekend where we kind of let people know, like, who's really top dog, because it's kind of hard to do that every single weekend because you have different car setups, people are physically moving different. You got a certain pit box where you might be coming around a car. It's hard to really showcase top end speed every single weekend, and I think that's just the beauty of how much of a unit you have to be in this sport to be champions or be a successful unit. So a weekend like this, definitely, there's going to be a little bit of jibber jabber on the sidelines. When you're walking past other crews, like, all right, buddy, lace up, because This is what we came here to do. I heard you said y'all did this at practice, and we said we would do this at practice. None of that matters if we don't do it here. So that's the mindset that we're going into the weekend.
Yeah, there's a little redemption that you guys need for this year, because I think last year I ended up with a little bit of a time penalty. I think it had to do with a lug nut last year, but you had top 10 speed as far as stops go. So we're all definitely going to be rooting for you this weekend when it comes to the pit crew challenge for the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro. Um, so we got through a lot of the racing questions and your background and everything. But just one more little item to get people to know a little bit more about you. You mentioned you do have a couple days a week to spend with family, relax a little bit. It kind of looks like, from what we understand, you have a little bit of a pastime that involves like fishing.
Oh, yeah.
How did you get into that? And do you still keep up with it even during a busy NASCAR racing season?
Oh, absolutely. There's a challenge with being a pit crew guy, understanding how many hours you work a week, because the challenge is finding out how to make the most of the free time that you have. Now, let's say, okay, we'll just put it in simple numbers. You got 40 hours a week. Obviously, there's more than that, but let's say 20 hours a week you work. 20 hours a week you have to do whatever, whether that's be a dad, be a brother, be a fisherman, or second job, or manager, whatever the case may be. However you manipulate those hours seems to be kind of the final say so of how you do when you decide to retire in the sport. Now, for me, I'm a big believer in time on the water equals knowledge. I'm so passionate of an angler. I watch every time I get a chance, and it's on. I want to watch the Bassmasters, the MLF. I'm watching YouTube to kind of just see who around Lake Norman's been on the water, see what's working for them. Every single time that I'm in the shop, I'm focused on pit stops, and usually the rest of that day. But that Friday or that Monday, when I can get, sit back and relax, all I'm thinking about is how can I go out and catch that big 5 fish limit bag. That's what I'm thinking about. So that's absolutely my biggest passion outside of being a championship guy again is how can I figure out how to catch them? That's where I want to be. I think it's a peaceful place to be with and it's kind of like being on a pit crew. Like on a pit crew, you've got a couple sections of just maximum adrenaline that you could have, but the rest of the time it's kind of like, oh, you're laid back, you're watching the race and everything's smooth and you're calm, and then boom, cars coming in. Okay, adrenaline's pumping. It's no different than me being on the water. It's like, all right, we're cool. It's calm. It's nice out. We're in a really cool environment. And then boom, fish tugs on the line. Okay, same thing. I'm ready to go. So yeah, that's definitely my biggest hobby and biggest passion outside of here is the big goal for me is when I'm done with this, I would love to be on TV catching big bass on the Bassmasters trail or whatever the case may be. But I love the water. I love fishing. I love the science behind it. I love being able to battle against something that's not human, if that sounds weird. But I love the detail that's incorporated in the sport of fishing. The only thing that's holding me back right now is I got to get a boat. Got to get a boat, but man, they're not cheap. They are not cheap. So once I get a boat, I'll really be able to dive into it and put some more time into it. But I'll never be able to put as much time into it as I need to until my knees and my lower back say, "Hey, it's time for you to stop pitting cars."
I think you need Ryan to win one of those races down at Homestead. Maybe you can get him to get that boat that the winner gets. I've seen those in Victory Lane a few times. Maybe you can tell him, hey man, that's all I want right there. It's just that boat.
Yeah, that's it. I'll just tell Ryan, but hey man, just be a co-angler with me. Like let me run the front of the boat. Like keep it in your name. You take care of it. Let's just go out here and win. But he's a good guy. I wouldn't put it past him.
Well, Jourdan, really just want to thank you for coming on, giving us the time, letting us get this opportunity to help tell your story. And I know for Steve and I, congratulations on being the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series champion, especially relatively earlier in your career. From all the way you've answered all these questions and described, your work ethic, you definitely deserved it. And this crew, especially what they've been through over the last couple of years and how you guys have come together, really all deserved it. So thank you for that.
I really appreciate it, guys. I know it was a long time coming for me to be on here, but like I said, mentally last year I was just so locked in. I don't want to put anything in the air to jinx anything, and I think that made this conversation all the better. Just knowing that we could kind of talk about what the great things that happened last year. So I really appreciate you guys for having me.
Yeah, so good luck the rest of the season, and hopefully you'll be celebrating in victory lane soon with Ryan Blaney and the rest of that 12 crew. So that was Jourdan Osinskie, Jackman for the number 12 Ford Mustang Dark Horse for Team Penske on the NASCAR Cup Series circuit.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.